is Heritage Words, a podcast about the words we've inherited from our ancestors and the meaning they bring to our lives. Heritage Words is produced by the HUC Jewish Language Project, which raises awareness about Jewish ancestral diversity through the lens of language. I'm your host, Sarah Bunin-Benor. Our guest today is Joseph Bendahan. Joseph was born in Caracas, Venezuela, to a Venezuelan father and a Moroccan mother. In Venezuela, he received a Bachelor of Science, and in Israel, he received a PhD in nuclear physics. Joseph works at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. He's a lifelong learner and the proud parent of 4 children. Joseph, welcome to Heritage Words.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
So I want to start by asking you about your names. Where do they come from and what do they mean to you?
My name is Joseph Bendahan. So it comes from Jose from Joseph, from Yosef from the Bible. Bendahan is a Moroccan last name that is relatively common in Morocco. And that's from my father's side. And from my mother's side is Seruya, which in Hebrew is actually Tzruya, which comes from the Bible. From the Yoav ben Tzruya, he was the commander-in-chief of the armies of King David. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Bendahan, do you know what that means?
Well, Ben usually is a Hebrew word for son. But Dahan, I understand that is in some Arabic dialect, it means painter. So some of a painter.
Okay, so maybe an occupation name.
It looks like.
Okay, so tell us about where in Morocco your ancestors were from, and then, let's start with that.
Yeah, so what I know is from starting from my grandfather, my paternal grandfather. He was born in Ouezzane, one of the cities in Morocco. And it's interestingly, Ouezzane is one of the places where Rabbi Abraham Bendahan, one of the saints, is buried, and people use pilgrimage. And they go there for pilgrimage. In Haketia, you call it Zorear. And then the parents were very afraid of his safety because he has some friction with the Arab population. So they're trying to figure out what to do with him. So they send it to Venezuela because they have some cousins there. Meanwhile, my paternal grandmother was living in Morocco, and she decided to go to Venezuela to follow her sister, who married a merchant there. They met, they got married, and my father and my aunt were born over there. Meanwhile, from my mother's side, they live in Tetouan, they decided to go to Venezuela in 1955 to follow her sister, who was my grandmother's, other grandmother. So that my 2 grandmothers were sisters. So my parents were first cousins. At that time, I think maybe even now, between the Sephardic, it's common to marry first cousins because it's not forbidden by the Torah as any forbidden relationship. So that happened quite a bit. And then they got married, and I was born there. So that's the origin. Later on, I moved to Israel. I studied there, and then I ended up in Venezuela, in the United States, after I married an Ashkenazi woman. And so since then, 1989, we live here in the United States, in the Bay Area.
In the Bay Area, okay. And so where in Morocco you said the name of your grandpa's town was Ouezzane, is that right?
That's right.
And what was the town of your other ancestors from Morocco?
Tetouan. So most of the rest of the ancestors from Tetouan, yes. Okay.
And so did the Ouezzane side of the family also speak Haketia, or did they speak Judeo-Arabic?
They spoke Arabic, but then Spanish and Haketia, yes.
And so did your parents speak Haketia to each other?
No, but because my father was born in Venezuela, he wasn't exposed to Haketia as much. But my mother, my grandparents, yes, they spoke to me in Haketia all the time. And even now, my mother's still alive. She speaks Haketia with me when we talk about certain things and so on. So it's still there. It's been used. Yes.
Wow. And so tell us about the differences between Haketia and Venezuelan Spanish.
So Spanish in all around the world is more or less the same. There are some differences maybe in the jargon. There may be obviously differences in the some the expressions and also in the accent. But beyond that, the Spanish is pretty more or less the same. No, Haketia is, as you may know, many of the Jews arrived to Morocco from other parts of the world, and including Spain. And then they live in a country that was Arab, so they spoke Arabic too, and they were exposed to Hebrew because of the culture, the Torah, and everything else. And they live in ghettos, or what they call juderias or melah. And during that time, they live in very close quarters. And so they were exposed, they weren't allowed to speak or to use literature, literally part of the Arabic, but only the colloquial terms. And so they use and they express and they combine all these languages in different modes. And they also tried, when they talked to, they didn't want to disclose what they were saying, so they masked some of the words and so on. And so Haketia, if you want to call it a language, is a mixing of Hebrew, Spanish, and Arabic, a little bit with other languages. And what you do is interesting, that you can take a word in Hebrew or in Arabic and you conjugate it in Spanish. For example, there is a word in Arabic that is meaning lie, but in Haketia it's called ketbeat. So you can say, yo ketbeo, el ketbea, but it's actually, the word is in Arabic.
Yeah. And so did your family do that a lot when they were speaking predominantly Venezuelan Spanish? Would they incorporate words from Haketia like that?
Oh yeah, all the time. In particular, when we, with family members or friends, Venezuela, at the time that I lived there were about 50% Sephardic and 50% Ashkenazi. And we had the opportunity at school or the JCC or whatever we were to express ourselves in Haketia with our friends, with Sephardic friends. Now, some of the Ashkenazi friends actually learned some Haketia, and it was very funny to hear them say the words, because you say, oh, you're a white, Ashkenazi saying those words in Haketia, it doesn't look right. But they also learned some Haketia. My wife, sometimes she says a word that she thinks is Spanish, but it's actually Haketia, because we didn't distinguish, no, this is Spanish and this is Haketia. But yes, it was very expressive. We used it all the time. We use it for blessings. Well, my parents use it for blessings and curses, and we did that with our friends and so on.
Okay, so now we got to get to the examples of all these things you're talking about. So let's start with some blessings. What are some examples of blessings that your parents or you would use in Haketia when speaking Venezuelan Spanish?
So one of the blessings is me vaya capara por ti. So kapara is probably, you may know, that come from kaparot, from the Hebrew, or from Yom Kippur, when you actually atone for your sins by sacrificing an animal. So me vaya capara por ti means I love you so much that I'm willing to sacrifice myself for you. It's very expressive. For example, if it is dark and someone turns off the light, so you say alumbrado lo vivas, mi bueno. So alumbrado means, may your life be full of light. And mi bueno come from bueno, which is good. And it means, you are all the good from the world. So you mean alumbrado lo vivas, mi bueno. You can also say endulzado lo vivas. If someone offered you some sweets, so that means that is meaning, I wish your life will be full of sweetness, for example. They also can say, when they call you, let's say, feras mal. Feras mal come from fuera de mal, which means out of danger, away from any bad happening. So instead of calling you by your name, they can call you Ferazman. So it's even from calling you, they're giving you a blessing. But you probably want to see also about curses, I imagine, right?
Okay, yeah, let's get to the curses.
Well, so in the same way that the blessings are so expressive, the curses are really expressive too. So, for example, if someone is upset with you, you can say, "Wo por ti se te caiga el mazzal." So now, wo is a meaning of a spiritual pain. So when you go, for example, to a funeral, you say, "Wo, wo, wo," you're feeling the pain. But it's also a curse to say, "Damn you." For example, wo por ti. Now, se te caiga el mazzal goes a little bit deeper in the level of cursing. Mazzal in Hebrew is luck. So when someone says se te caiga el mazzal, it means that I wish you lose all the luck that you can receive from the cosmos. So therefore, that means it's really bad because all that good luck you may have, all this random thing that could happen to you is not going to happen to you anymore. It's going to be all bad. Another one, to give another example, is quemado te veas. Quemado also means to feel pain, but if someone tells you that, it means burning flames. So it's very expressive.
Okay, aside from curses and blessings, let's talk about other types of words. What about terms of endearment, like sweetie, honey, that kind of thing?
Well, for example, Ferasmal is kind of a term of endearment. Mi bueno, as I meant before, you're my good. It's also kind of a way that you call people all the time.
And
And it's that, go ahead.
is that the kind of thing that a grandmother would say to a grandchild?
Yeah, the
Okay.
parents to the kids, and yeah, and you can say that to your dear friend. You can say the same thing, yes, or family
Mhm.
members and so on. Yeah.
Okay, and then what about kinship terms, like words that you used to address or refer to parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, that kind of thing?
Well, the culture was a lot of respect. So, for example, your father, your grandfather has a place on the table, and you cannot sit on that chair. But I don't remember calling them special names or anything like that. Um, but it's mainly from your parents or your grandparents to the kids or to the friends. That's
Mhm.
the word I used. It could be that I was not, well, not could be, I was not exposed to all the Haketia that exists, so probably there is much more than that.
Oh, of course. Yes, I'm interested in what you used in your family
Yeah.
and community. So what did you call your grandparents?
Abuelo, abuela, like the Spanish
Yeah,
names. Yeah.
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 Okay, what about taboo concepts like parts of the body or other things, bathroom functions, that kind of thing?
Well, for example, I mean, I don't know those things exactly, but for example, if you want to say toilet, you say hojera, ve a la hojera. So go to the toilet or going to the bathroom. Used to say, voy a la hojera. That's one of the terms that I remember hearing.
What does
Um,
it mean?
hojera is the toilet, pretty much. It could be like the bathroom toilet related.
But is it from Arabic or do you know where it's from?
I don't know what the origin. It's not, well, it doesn't sound Hebrew, so most probably it's Arabic, I would say, and it's not Spanish. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say it's Arabic.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, what about foods? Do you have specific words
Oh
for?
yeah, yeah. So there's lots of food. Usually women are usually the one that make the food, so they're exposed more to that. But I ate what the Ashkenazi call cholen. So there are two type of food that I use for Shabbat, that you leave it on Friday, you leave it all day cooking. One is adafina, that is like a soup of potatoes and eggs and garbanzo beans with meat and bone marrow. The other one is orisa, which is made of wheat, and this same similar ingredient, but it's a little bit more solid. And my mother used to say that not everybody in Tetuan had, a forno. Forno is horno, but you change the F or H, and they didn't have the ovens in their houses, so they have it community ovens. And what happened is that they used to make the dafina and the risa there, and the morito, which are the little Arab kids, used to bring them for after the synagogue, when they used to go to the synagogue to eat at their houses. There is also orisa. Orisa is chicken with lots of oil, fried onions, really tasty. Some sweets at shubakia. And then there is fijuela. Fijuela is like a dough, a very thin dough, and you fry it and you turn it around as you are frying it. And then you put some honey at the end and so on. So these are some of the foods that I used to eat. Another one that I used to eat for Friday night is pescado cocho. Pescado is fish. Cocho is kind of cooked. That it was fish with tomatoes and peppers, slowly cooked and very, very tasty and very special for a Friday night meal.
Mm. And were there any restaurants in Venezuela where you could get these foods?
Not really, not really. No, now I have a friend that she makes Sephardic food, and here in the Bay Area we have a caterer that makes Sephardic food. So there is also, couscous that is known not only in the Moroccan cuisine, but they make all kind of thing. But there is something that you put in the couscous that is a very Haketia name. It's called hodra akleada. Hodra akleada is like some vegetables, and then you leave them there to dry, and then you put it together with sugar and nuts and so on. So lots of very, very interesting food. Some of my Ashkenazi friends, I would wish I would be Sephardic just because of the food, because there's a huge variety, a lot of spices, a lot of flavor, it looks great also. So
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to get back to the community in Venezuela. You said it's about half Ashkenazi, half Sephardi. Are the Sephardi Jews there all from Morocco or also from other places?
I would say most of them were from Morocco. Tetuan, many from Tetuan, some from Casablanca, Melilla, Ceuta. I don't remember anybody from the Arab part of Morocco, but most of them were from there. There were some that maybe came from Arab countries, but small, a minority of them. But most of them were actually from Morocco, I would say.
Hmm. And growing up, did you go to Jewish day schools, private schools?
Yeah, yeah. The Jewish day school that I used to go is called Morali Luces, Herzl Bialik. And that one I went from kindergarten all the way to the, secondary, it's the whole elementary school, middle school, and high school. The whole thing I did. I have friends that went with me from the very beginning to the very end.
Mm.
And last year we actually had the 50th year anniversary of the high school graduation in Miami. So we were 50 people there. We have a great time, and we used some of the Haketia between us. It was very special.
Oh, I love that. And it's not surprising that it was in Miami because I guess a lot of the Venezuelan Jewish community has migrated to Miami, right?
Yeah, after Chavez and Maduro, they lost opportunities. Jews like to do very challenging things and commerce and so on, and they lost that capability. There was oppression of the general community and decided, there's nothing here for me. And most of them left. Maybe I would guess that maybe 8,000 Jews or less by now from over 30,000 the times I used to live there.
Okay. Wow. Have you been back recently?
No, recently, I went there about 25 years ago when my father died, but no since.
Mm-hmm. So when you had your well, in Venezuela when you were growing up, you said that some of the Ashkenazi classmates also use some of the Haketia. Can you give us some examples of the kind of thing you might hear on the playground?
Well, they used to say mi bueno, just kind of to play, o se te caiga el mazzal, like I mentioned before, joking and so on. But if you go beyond some of the words, they don't get it because they were not exposed. They only were exposed when they heard, my friends, Sephardic friends, talking to each other, but they didn't have it like daily when they talk to their parents or grandparents. So it's only a few words here and there.
Yeah, well, I know of a similar phenomenon today in Los Angeles where the Jewish day schools have a lot of Persian Jews. The Ashkenazi students there learn a lot of Persian words. Like my daughter learned the word June, which is a term of endearment from her Persian classmates. And especially from the boys, I think there's a lot of Persian curse words that are flying around. Did you get that in Venezuela as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. Those are the flyers that the ones that fly the most. That's right. Yeah, it's like in some extent, it's like a non-Jew or a Sephardic Jew can mention a word in Yiddish that is not being used by in general, right? So it's similar. That's the way they use the Ashkenazi Jews use those words.
Exactly. Do you know when you were in Venezuela, did you have any non-Jewish friends?
Yes, not that many, because what happened is the school was it was Jewish school. Most of the kids were Jewish, and maybe a few percent non-Jewish kids. And then we went to the JCC, and again, Jews. You go to the synagogue, again, Jews. So, but my neighbors, and when I went to university, I have non-Jewish friends, yes.
And did you use any of your Haketia words with them?
No, 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 with it. It was going to be difficult to explain what it means, and so no, with them. No.
Okay. So what about your children? How many of the Haketia words do you use with them?
Well, what happened is this, two of my kids were born in Israel. And when they, in early age, we moved to United States, and I had another two kids. And I used to talk to them in Spanish, just Spanish. But then when they went to school and talking to the mother, they used to speak in English or Hebrew. Um, you know, they could not understand the Spanish anymore. They could understand very simple Spanish, but when we used to go into a little bit more conversation, it was very difficult to follow. So I use some of the Haketia words, and they still remember those words. But then, with the Spanish, the Haketia also disappeared because then we started speaking mainly in English. Now, two of my kids, two of the girls, they decided they learned Spanish and they like more Haketia and they like also the cooking, the Moroccan cooking, and they're doing that. And they like that. And one of my daughters, Ariel, was exposed more to my grandmother. So she learned more Haketia words than the other kids and so on.
And do you intentionally use any Haketia words when talking to your kids?
Yeah, yeah. So because it's a way better expressing yourself sometimes, and so I did, yes.
So if I asked Ariel, for example, what words she heard from you, what words do you think she would mention?
Um, well, me vaya a acaparar por ti. She probably heard, I would sacrifice for you. Mi bueno, feras mal, things like that. Probably she would know. Yeah, alumbrado lo vivas. May your life be full of light. Things like that. Probably she would know.
Okay. And do you feel like that kind of thing where children learn select words but not the whole language is useful in the case of an endangered language?
Well, unfortunately, because I moved to United States and the Haketia is not used in English, it's very difficult. And I don't have that many Sephardic friends in the Bay Area. So, my family is losing it and it will definitely disappear. Some of the kids that are still in Venezuela, some of the people in Miami, probably they continue telling that to the kids. But because it's English, it's mainly in Miami, it's English and some Spanish, that probably will eventually disappear, unfortunately, yeah.
So it sounds like you're saying that for the maintenance of even select heritage words, it's really important to have a community around you of other people from that background.
You're correct. Yes, that's correct.
So you've been talking about words and foods, but what about music? Were there any songs that you grew up hearing in Haketia?
Yeah, there are songs. What is it called? The romanceros, like, in Ladino, similar to Ladino. So there isn't, so what they do is a romancero, but then they throw some words in Haketia. And my mother used to sing me some songs. And yes, we have a long play of Haketia songs.
Oh,
Yes.
like a vinyl album, a record?
A vinyl, yeah.
Wow,
You
wow.
know, a long play because, that was from a long time ago.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
there, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask if you wouldn't mind singing a bit of a song for us.
No, no, that one I don't do.
Okay, okay, that's where you draw the line.
That's right.
Okay, what were some names of some of the songs that you remember?
I don't remember. Let me see. I don't remember the songs. I can send them to you by email later. And then maybe I have the long play and I have a method to record to digital. So I can do that too. And then I can send it to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it seems like you recognize the endangerment of your ancestral language, and it seems like I'm wondering what your feelings are about that. How do you feel about the fact that your generation is the last to really understand and be able to have conversations in it?
Well, Haketia is such an expressive language. It is a historical language. It comes from probably centuries of evolution and used by our predecessors. And it's a pity that it's going to disappear. But it's in some part is my fault because I didn't think about it. I probably should have used it with my kids more and force it, for them to use it too in such a way that will keep it. But unfortunately, it's difficult sometimes when you move to other countries, when the kids don't want to speak, the Spanish language, or it's difficult for them, and so on. So it's a pity that is happening.
Well, what would you like to see happen with the language? For other people, for researchers documenting it, like what would be the ideal situation given the circumstances we're in?
Well, the idea would be is to interview people that still are fluent in Haketia, and then, or maybe two people or more people, and let them speak to each other and record it. And then in that way, there will be at least a recording to future generation of how the language was spoken. We have, we have a dictionary that has all these languages and expression in there. What the nice thing about it is that you can go and find a language, a word, and it can give you an expression there. So therefore, those are good. Some of the expressions they're very interesting. For example, I wanted to mention this one. It says, "Dame un grano de mazzal y tírame a las fondinas del mar." Give me a grain of anything, of grain of mazzal, of luck, and throw me to the depth of the sea. So what this means is that if you have a little bit of mazzal, life can be on the positive side and be wonderful. So there are many expressions like that. That is a pity that they are lost. There are many expressions. For example, when you get upset, my mother used to say, "No quemeo contigo." I cannot deal with you anymore. Or no me hagas llenear, don't make me upset. And those are very expressive. When somebody, for example, is telling you something you don't want to hear, and you want to respond, your friend will tell you, cerquea means, tolerate, don't add wood to the fire, it's okay. Or something bad happened, you say, que gezerah. You say gezerah come from Hebrew, it's like a decree, but it has been distorted in Haketia, meaning what a disaster. So all those expressions, unfortunately, will get lost.
Yeah, and I think you're right that the way to preserve them is by recording people speaking the language, and then that dictionary that you showed that you mentioned, I think it would be great to digitize that and put in recordings for each entry so that people can hear how they were actually pronounced. So I think that's something that we at the Jewish Language Project would like to work on. We do work with a platform called Living Tongues, Living Dictionaries, where you can do that kind of online dictionary with recorded entries and example sentences. So we'd love to do that for Haketia. So if any of the listeners are interested in getting involved with that, then they should reach out. You also mentioned another idea is to have a mentor-learner program. There are young people who are interested in Haketia and would be thrilled to talk to someone like you or your mom who is proficient in the language and really learn the language from your conversations. There are classes in various Jewish languages, especially at the Oxford School of Rare Jewish Languages, but this is a different way to learn the language besides a class through just direct communication between native speakers and learners. And so I would love to see Haketia be one of the languages that we use for our mentor-learner program in the future.
Yeah, I volunteer. If someone needs that, I'm willing to do that. But one thing that I wanted to mention, I'm not sure that you can say Haketia is a language, because the base is Spanish, and then you add all kind of words. You replace some of the Spanish word with all these other words. So it's not really a real language, I would say. It's more like what I mentioned before.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is the case with so many language varieties, and where do you draw the line between language and dialect, or a variety of the language with just a few distinctive words? And here at the Jewish Language Project, we don't worry about that question, and we just analyze the languages as they're used. So, but I think the point of what you're saying is that someone who knows Spanish can learn Haketia much more easily than
Oh, yeah,
a totally different language where they would have to learn the entire grammatical system as well.
you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what else do you want to share with us before we let you go?
Well, I wanted to also to share some mythology that was developed in that area. For example, my mother and my grandparents used to talk about dembajos. Dembajo means from below. And what they say is that on the sixth day, after men were created, they created these creatures. And these creatures are like men, but they have feet of chicken feet. And you can see them wandering around, but mainly they live under the ground, so therefore you don't see them. Another one is las dichosas. Las dichosas son these mythological characters that are supposed to protect people during holidays and weddings and things like that. And there's also legends. For example, I mentioned Ouezzane, Rabbi Amram ben Diwan. My mother used to say every time she mentioned Rabbi Amram ben Diwan, she kisses her hand. Because he was, a saint in the Torah and Kabbalah, and people, go to Ouezzane, and they use a lot of candles. You go over there. I haven't been there, but you go over there, lots of candles, a lot of smoke, and then if you have zehut, if you have merit, you will see his face in the smoke. And then my grandfather said he saw that. And so there are legends and also mythological creatures and things like that. So it's not just language, it's not that food and expressions, but it's all the other things like this.
I love that. Yeah. What about superstitions? Are there any superstitions that
Oh
your
yeah.
family
Oh yeah, I mean, Ain Hara, Ain Hara is in Hebrew means the evil eye. So Ain Hara is, you have your Hamsa, and you have to be careful what people say about you, and so on. Some people they say, well, how many kids do you have? They don't say because, who knows the number, what is going to happen to you. They're very superstitious, very, very. That's a good point. Yeah.
And then what about holiday traditions that are specific to Haketia ancestry communities?
Well, so yes, so there is, the Brit Milah, as usual. All the Jews have the Brit Milah, but then the songs, the tunes, the blessings, whatever these are different from the Ashkenazi one. And as usual, when you sing in Sephardic, you shout. You don't say, it's very nice song, very calm. You shout to your lungs. And they say, guys, God will hear you anyway. What do you shout? He said, well, if you have a fake coin, when you put it there, what would you do? You would put it there like that, or you will, if it's not fake, you will throw it because the sound, it doesn't matter. So you know that what you're praying is the right thing to do. So you shout it, very loud. And that's the way that, when you go to the synagogue, that's very loud. The blessing during the weddings and during it calls circuncisiones, los tefilim is whatever you put in your arm. So you instead of say bar mitzvah, you say tefelimes. So during all those holidays, a lot of special songs and tunes and happies and food and so on. Yeah. There are other things like talamon and uh, other little things that the people do too. For
Wait,
women, for example, for women, instead of circumcision, they do las fadas, where you give the name to the girl. So there is also a big celebration, not as big as the Brit. It's
wait,
called
what did you
fada.
say? What did you say before that you said Telamun? What was that?
Talamon.
Talamon, what is
So there
that?
is another book. This one also has the holidays and traditions, what people do. And one of it was the Talamon. I don't remember what it was necessarily, but there's also other celebrations.
Okay, and what's the name of that book?
It's called Tetouan, Relato de una Nostalgia.
Nice. Okay. So that's interesting that it's about nostalgia because that's a lot of what we're talking about here, right? These are
Oh,
words and languages that are part of our ancestral past that maybe aren't part of the present for so many of us, and we have nostalgia for a lot of it.
oh my goodness. You talk to my mother and she says, oh, when we were in Tetuan, we used to do this, we used to do that. And I used to visit my friend and we used to do all these kind of things. And you can see her eyes become watery and she's always very nostalgic about every time she talks about Tetuan. She had a
Mm.
very good life over there. She had good relationship with the Arab neighbors, at least within the Juderias. And yeah, it's a pity. When she left, she was very sad. And when people arrived to Venezuela, they actually built the synagogue like in Tetuan. My grandfather was a shamash. He was the caretaker of the synagogue, one of the 17 synagogues in Tetuan. He became also shamash in the Venezuelan synagogue at Tiferet Israel. And they used to have, the Sefer Torah, like the scrolls, not like the other ones, like some of the Mizrahi Jews, they have this wooden cover. We have also the scrolls, and the whatever the dressing, it was very Moroccan, and the pamutim, whatever you put on top, all that very Moroccan, and so on. So they tried to bring that from Morocco. The songs were the same, the piyutim, the singing, all that stuff was very similar, the same.
And did you learn that growing up? You went to a Moroccan synagogue growing up and learned all that?
Yeah, yes. Hmm.
And what about your children? I guess you said there isn't that kind of synagogue in the Bay Area. Do you go
There is
to
one synagogue in the Bay Area, Bar Yochai. Originally was mainly from Persia, and there were some Moroccans, and then many Israelis joined, and they converted a little bit more into the Moroccan style of the piyutim and so on. That's the only one that is in the area. But most of the Jews, in particular in the Bay Area, in the United States, are Ashkenazi. They are very, very small percentage of Sephardic Jews.
And so did your children learn Sephardic or
No,
Ashkenazi? Just
only
Ashkenazi?
Ashkenazi because that synagogue was not available when they grew up, so they
Hmm.
went to Ashkenazi synagogues.
Hmm. Got it. Okay. Okay. Any last thoughts that you want to share before the end of our interview?
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for the opportunity to tell you about my family origins and some about Haketia. Many people know about Ladino, but never heard about Haketia. And so talking about it and being this thing being disseminated will bring this information to other Jews or other people so they will know that of the existence of Haketia. So thank you for that opportunity.
I appreciate that. That is one of our primary goals at the Jewish Language Project, to raise awareness about the diversity of the Jewish people through the lens of language. So thank you for your contributions to that effort and for talking to us today.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Heritage Words is a partnership of the Hebrew Union College Jewish Language Project and HUC Connect, supported by tax-deductible donations from listeners like you. I'm the producer and host, Sarah Bunin-Benor. Kyle Elbaz Fingerhut is assistant producer, Avishai Artsy is editor, and Talia Ehrenberg is video editor. The music is from Maurice El Medioni's French and Algerian Arabic album Café Oran, featuring the Klezmatics David Krakauer and Frank London, courtesy of Piranha Records. This podcast is one of the many ways the Jewish Language Project raises awareness about the diversity of the Jewish people and the phenomenon of heritage words. We also have online crowdsourced dictionaries where you can find the words mentioned on the podcast. We post Jewish Word of the Week and fun facts on social media, and we offer free educational materials and exhibits that you can visit online or display in a synagogue, museum, or community center. Contact us about our live taping opportunities. Looking for gifts for Shabbat dinners and Passover seders? Check out our whimsical multilingual t-shirts, tote bags, stickers, and aprons. You can find all this content and donate, volunteer, or sign up for our email list at jewishlanguages.org. Thank you, merci mucho, soch boshi, rahmat, shukran, toda rabah, Ashenim Dank.